Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. It's our Committee of the Whole meeting for January 15th, 2024. I'm Susan Flowers, presently the Deputy Mayor. So this is one of our duties, is to carry on with the Committee of the Whole meetings. First, we'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion to accept it as written? Councillor Reid?
I will move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Thanks. All in favor? Carried. And adoption of the previous minutes. That would be December 4th, 2023 was the last meeting. Motion to accept.
So moved.
Mayor Janung, all in favor? Carried. So we'll move right into delegations. We've got the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board members here, Mr. Jordan Copping and Mr. Greg Clark. If they'll come out to the podium and give their presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Flowers. Mayor, councillors. We have a presentation here we'll pull up here shortly. There we go. So we'll just briefly take you through a quick update on the activities of the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board. As you know, we are, Cochrane is one of 8 members of the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board. Part of our mandate every year for Jordan and I is to come and visit each council, as well as have one-on-ones with the mayor and other representatives of CMRB. I should probably introduce myself. I'm Greg Clark. I'm chair of the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board, joined by Jordan Copping, chief officer of the CMRB. I don't know, am I in charge of this, or is... Perfect, wonderful. So just a quick, I know we've had meetings with Cochrane Town Council before. I know all of you, I think, are quite familiar with growth management boards, but just a level set. It is part of the, we're mandated provincially under the Municipal Government Act. The history of growth management boards in Alberta is one of a yes and then a no and then a yes again. So up until about 1995, we had regional growth boards. That was eliminated by the government of the day. We then had voluntary boards. The Calgary Regional Partnership operated from around the early 2000s until it was replaced by the mandated Calgary Metropolitan Region Board, which of course again is mandated under the MGA. And came into existence on 1st of January 2018. Our region is home to 8 municipalities, Cochrane, of course, being one of them. Foothills County, Rocky View County, Chestermere, Airdrie, High River, Okotoks, and of course the city of Calgary as well are the 8 municipalities. This is a little bit out of date. I'd say we're probably closer to 1.6 million people by now, maybe even more. I know Cochrane is seeing some of the growth that we are all seeing in the region and the pressures and benefits that come with that. Our mandate is rather specific. Promoting the long-term sustainability of the Calgary region. I won't read out each and every one of these, but it ties into some of the core projects that we're working on, which Jordan will take you through here momentarily. Ensuring environmentally responsible land use planning and efficient use of land. I think that's comes back to a lot of where we land. The coordination of regional infrastructure investment and service delivery. There's a big discussion ongoing about water in the region at the moment, both in terms of service delivery, but also, of course, in terms of water preservation in times of drought, which we've been experiencing last year, as we know coming into this year, as a significant risk of a substantial drought. So CMRB is acting as a convener, bringing the 8 municipalities together, working with Alberta Environment and Protected Areas and other key stakeholders to coordinate our response to drought management. Promoting the economic well-being and competitiveness in the Calgary region. Jordan will take us through the Regional Economic Development Project discussion that also includes some Indigenous economic development opportunities. And in terms of the long-term sustainability, part of that is promoting Indigenous relations. We have a couple of initiatives underway right now as it relates to Indigenous relations. And again, Jordan will provide us with some details on that. The vision, I won't read this in detail, but really it comes down to how do we work well together, the 8 members of the Calgary Metropolitan Region, in a way that's mutually beneficial, not just for our current residents and current municipalities, but for those who are yet to come. And also to create the conditions where we're going to attract those folks. If we do those things, we're going to increase our competitiveness on the global stage. We're going to attract even more investment and more population to this region. We're going to do so in a planful way that allows us to make sure we have the infrastructure that they need when they do arrive, both in terms of physical infrastructure as well as supporting social infrastructure. Saving taxpayer dollars through more efficient service delivery. Wherever we can share services, I think that is clearly mutually beneficial. I know Cochrane's involved in a couple of discussions around service delivery that is hopefully going to be beneficial not just to Cochrane but also to the entire region. Reducing land consumption by targeting growth in what we've called joint planning areas is a key mandate of the board. The short answer to where the growth is going to be, if you don't know, in the joint planning areas, is between Calgary and Airdrie, towards the east side of Calgary, and then between Okotoks and High River. That is primarily where we're going to see the growth in the future in the joint planning areas, which involves multiple municipalities working together to come up with strategies to how exactly we're going to do that. The outcome of all this is not only more streamlined decision-making and more efficient use of taxpayer dollars, but ideally we're going to reduce intermunicipal conflicts and disagreements. We're already starting to see that. In particular, we've seen Calgary and Rocky View County historically have not always seen the world quite the same way, I think it's fair to say. Of late, over the last couple of years, it really has been, I describe it as flipping a light switch. That relationship in particular has really improved to benefit of both municipalities, and I think we'll see, not to spoil any surprises, but I think there's some opportunities here forthcoming we'll hear about relatively soon of some work that's being done between Calgary and Rocky View County in particular. And there are other examples as well where reducing those conflicts is resulting in significant benefit. That has the effect of creating certainty, market certainty for investors, which is what an investor wants more than anything else, is certainty and predictability to be able to make long-term investment decisions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan. He's going to take us through some of the details of what we're working on here at the CMRP.
Thanks, Greg. Members of council. So the Regional Evaluation Framework, this is the process that we use to evaluate submitted applications, submitted statutory plans. Since August 15, 2022, it has been in place. We've had 5 approved applications and 3 withdrawn applications. Just for clarification, that's kind of the 3 withdrawn applications, but it's we saw one of them twice, but it was withdrawn both times. Just to go into a little bit of detail about the initiatives Greg touched on earlier, we have the digitization of existing and approved land use, or what we call the DEAL version 2. Really what this does is it gives us the ability to see what is built and planned across the landscape. And this data was key for the consultant to be able to build the growth plan when we were in that process. And what we've done is we've updated this. This is data that is also available on our open data portal on our website. It allows for academics, developers, other folks that are interested to download the data and use it, take a look at it. We completed that in June 2023. We've actually seen a fair amount of uptake on it, especially from academic institutions looking for this kind of data, helps them with research. Second, as Greg already mentioned, the Regional Economic Development Vision and Framework. So this is work that the board has been interested in since inception. However, we had to kind of get through the growth and servicing plan developments before we could start on this work. We did begin in 2022, late 2022 with the kickoff, and then through 2023. The report was completed and approved kind of the June and then the July meeting of 2023. And really what that was the vision and the framework. And we're now taking the next steps to implement that report from MNP. At the July board meeting, it was offered by Mayor Gondek for Calgary Economic Development to lead this work. So we're not seeing duplication and also seeing some savings on not hiring external consultants. And so we've been working with CED. They brought someone on in September, and we've been working with them since October. So we've done municipal administration interviews, as you can see, to kind of determine what the municipal economic development efforts are across the region. Every different municipality has different levels. Some folks have dedicated economic development teams. Some municipalities have people doing it off the corner of their desk. And the size of those economic development teams varies from municipality to municipality. Second thing, the members all wanted to collaborate on regional economic development and all agreed that they want to go after the larger projects, or what was termed as tier one opportunities. Everyone knows what a tier one opportunity is when they see it. No one can define it. So part of this is to actually set a definition around it that all 8 member municipalities will agree upon and say these are the types of opportunities we're going to collaborate on. And then they finalize the structure for collaborative regional economic development. So this is not only how to work together, but also looking at a funding model for it. Because this is, I would say, adjacent to and currently under the umbrella of the CMRB, but eventually would be a standalone initiative that would not be run by CMRB, but would be either developed or just through a collaborative with the 8 member municipalities or some other structure. As Greg mentioned, Indigenous relations has been key since the board was created. And this last year, we have worked through 4 different initiatives. So the dialogue, where we continue to maintain momentum by meeting with Indigenous nations from in and around the region. Last time when we had a board meeting in Cochrane a little over a year ago, representatives from Métis Nation region, what was then Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, came and did a presentation to the board, met with the board, we had lunch with them, just really fostering stronger relationships between the 8 member municipalities and Indigenous nations. The Co-Create initiative, where we finalized the addition to reserve framework. So what this is for council members that may not be aware, we're seeing a lot of global settlement agreements being finalized across Canada. And in these global settlements agreements, there is the opportunity for Indigenous nations to add lands to reserve, or ATR, additions to reserve. What's really important to note is that these lands do not need to be contiguous to existing reserve lands. It's willing buyer, willing seller. So a nation could buy a parcel of land in Cochrane and then go to the federal government and make application to have that land converted to reserve lands. What this framework does is it gives member municipalities a starting point to develop their own process in terms of how to work with Indigenous nations that want to do an addition to reserve on land that may be located within your member municipality. Through this opportunity, we were able to co-create with members of the Bears Paw Nation and also Siksika had a representative on the committee. So we were able to strengthen the relationships with those 2 nations, as well as this I would say framework was also not officially vetted by Bears Paw Nation, but was officially vetted by Siksika and was thought to be a good starting point in terms of how to work together. It is not binding. It is up to member municipalities if they want to use it or if they just want to use it as a starting point to create their own framework. Lastly, I just want to touch on the Stories of the Land pilot. So the intention of this was to kind of look at a particular geographic location and attach a story to it. A historical or culturally significant story of one of the Indigenous nations from the region, Treaty 7. The more that we learn about this, the more complicated it has become. And we're still working on it, still in the, I would say, exploratory phase, but we're going to be bringing it back to the board here in Q1 for further discussion with the board in terms of the best way to go forward. Joint planning areas, Greg kind of already touched on them. From a CMRB administration perspective, we view these as there's 4 pilot projects for how joint servicing can best work. And because the development pattern, because the topography, because the players is different in all 4, we're going to see different solutions to similar problems and then really be able to start to duplicate those, the ones that are most successful around the region. In terms of the CMRB's role in this, we are enablers. We provide no oversight, we provide no work. And the context studies are due August 15th, 2024. In conversation with the members of all 4 JPAs, our understanding is that work is ongoing and that they are on target to meet that. Environmentally sensitive areas, or as we call it, ESAs, the database. For those of you who are on the journey to develop the growth plan, you'll recall that one of the regulated requirements of the growth plan was to develop policies pertinent to environmentally sensitive areas. The great thing about that is that there was no definition of environmentally sensitive areas. So part of the growth plan work was to create that joint definition, which we did. And then the follow-up out of the growth plan was to create this database. So essentially, if you think of the provincial or SSRP type of level of data, and then the municipal level of data, what we're looking for something is in between. And what this allows us to do is to identify large or regionally significant environmentally sensitive areas that cross municipal boundaries and will help municipalities as they're making planning decisions. We are bringing this to the committee on Friday for their review and hopeful recommendation for approval to the board. We're really excited about the work. I don't understand half of it, but the technical folks say it's amazing, and we're having multiple municipalities are actually already asking us for this data, especially as they start to work on their MDP updates. Water roadmap update. So as we know, water, critical resource for us and in short supply. I don't need to tell that to anyone in the room. Really what this is looking at is not the servicing aspect of water, but how to best use the water in the region. And so from the idea of how do we get the most out of every drop of water, is there an opportunity to work with the province or to lobby the province in terms of stormwater use or water reuse? And those regulations, how do we work together on that to leverage the voice of that 1.587 million people, rather than individual municipalities going alone. It's also looking at things like water conservation and water preservation. So it is that level of work. It's not really looking at servicing. And again, this is on the regional scale. We had brought in a consultant, ARUP. They provided us a report with 6 areas of focus. We brought that to the committee in, I believe it was September. And this, the committee liked the work, but wanted to see more actions. And so what we did is we went back to the report and pulled out. They buried the headline in the back. And so we pulled some of that work forward, worked with TAG, and we're going to be bringing that to committee actually on Friday. Once we get the roadmap scoping done, then we can start the actual work. One of the parts of it is drought resiliency. But you're going to see in Thursday's committee meeting that we've pulled drought resiliency out as its own individual topic. One, it's just really critical. Secondly, if we run into some further dialogue on the water roadmap, we just don't want to see that get bogged down in the discussion. We feel as administration it's really important that we start leveraging the region, the work of the region, to get ready for what we know is coming, which is going to be a very water scarce year, or very water scarce couple of years coming at us. Last but not least, Regional Transportation Transit Master Plan. In 2020 and 2020, or 2019, 2020, we did what was called the North Calgary Regional Transportation Study, which Cochrane was a part of, and that was started before the CMRB. We took that work and leveraged it and did the South and East Calgary Regional Transportation Study. Secrets, awesome acronym. And what we did is we combined the work out of those two to create a project list. And it was very quantitative. It was very dispassionate in terms of we did the numbers, and here's the top 20 list. We use that to advocate to the province in terms of, if you have money, please spend it on these transportation projects. Cochrane is seeing 2 of the ones that are on the list right now in progress. And the province uses that for their short and medium term transportation planning for the region. So it's been very successful. However, as Greg already alluded to, with the implementation of the growth plan, we're seeing a change to the growth pattern. So we're going to focus on priority growth areas. Cochrane's priority growth area, Airdrie, Calgary, all of the urban municipalities, and then the JPAs, and then growth hamlets, as they've been termed. So as we start to focus in on growth in those areas, we need to look at how can we maximize our current transportation network, And then also, how do we look at using transit to also, I would say, get the most out of our current transportation network? I don't need to tell you folks, building a massive interchange is really expensive. And if you can get more people moved, say, via transit versus via roads, you alleviate that pressure. It allows goods and services to move faster and more freely. And if you plan it well enough, you can potentially either push off or even eliminate the need for massive road infrastructure again. So that we are in the final throes of scoping that. We're going to be bringing it back to the board in Q1 of 24, and then we'll start the project through 2024. This is just a visual representation of the project that we're working on. Sorry, we originally created this presentation last year when we started presenting to council. So as you can see, it's not today. Today should be a little bit further forward, but it gives you an idea of the projects that we're working on. Any closing comments, Greg?
No, I guess maybe I'll end where I usually begin, which is just by offering gratitude again to each of you for your participation, both here, but of course in CMRB as well. We've had great participation from Cochrane from the very beginning. And just a reflection on how fortunate we are to live where we do and when we do. Just Jordan, I was saying to Jordan on the drive-in as we came down the hill, looking out in the distance over the mountains just as the sun's set, and you see this incredible vista and just the landscape that we have here, the people who live here, the opportunities before us. We're very fortunate, and so we feel pretty fortunate to be part of this, and really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you, and happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you for your thorough presentation. Big, important topics, and we are too grateful for this beautiful town and the way it's growing, so thank you. First up is Councillor Wilson. Question?
Thank you. Greg, Jordan, welcome. I had 3 questions from your presentation there. When we're talking about JPAs, is that primarily or only non-residential development? I just make that assumption when I'm hearing us talk about it.
It's mixed.
Okay.
So JPA 1, if you think of it, stretches from North Calgary to Airdrie, but it stretches both sides of Highway 2. So on east side, obviously in the Balzac development, you're going to see more non-residential, but what they call what Rocky View County terms as West Balzac is going to be residential. And also it stretches into both Airdrie and Calgary. And so that large southern portion of Airdrie and a big chunk of the northern part of Calgary is residential. So each JPA is a little bit unique. But there is a mix of both in 1 and 2. 3 does have a mix as well, and I want to say 4 does as well because it stretches into both High River. But the piece that's in foothills of 4 is not exclusively non-residential, but I would say the majority of it is for sure.
Okay, thank you. When we were talking about Tier 1 economic opportunities, would those most likely pass Cochrane by as they would be steered towards the JPA areas? Is that right? Or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It really depends on what, say that company is looking for, right? So creating, when we had the opportunity to meet with the ECDEV folks here in Cochrane, talking about creating that tech hub, and whether it's the wearable sports tech or, broadening out from there is, we do know that companies like to co-locate. It creates that kind of center of innovation or gravity of innovation. And so, no. By no means. Having said that, if it is a massive industrial processing facility, it probably won't go in Cochrane, just for a variety of reasons.
Okay, thank you. Possibly a silly question for you on the water topic. I've always wondered when we're talking about water licenses and just how severe the problem can be for Southern Alberta. Has there ever been any board talk about piping water from the North region down to the Southern region, or is that something that's?
Not as of yet, no. Not from a board perspective, but from my former life in the government, that would there would be some challenges to that in terms of the Water Act, because you'd be doing an interbasin transfer, which under the Water Act is really challenging. I'm not saying it's not possible, but that would require, if that is determined to be the best solution, it would require work from the provincial government. There's nothing that we as CMRB would be able to do. We would have to be advocates for that solution if the board ever chose to go that path.
Okay, thanks for indulging that one. And my final one was on the regional transportation study list. I know we have 2 of the top ranked things going on in our community right now. I can't remember from my time on CMRB. Was there anything on the South Highway 22 and River Bridge upgrade for Cochrane on that list, or do we have any other projects on that list, or is it just the 2 that?
I don't remember, but I'm surreptitiously glancing at your mayor, and he's giving me the.
We have 4 on the list,
Yeah.
excellent, okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming before us tonight and answering our questions.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Reid.
Yep. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. I had a comment and then 2 questions. My comment was that, I would characterize the work of CMRB as critically difficult. By critical, I mean that it's for the future of our community and communities in the surrounding area. We need to be able to partner and collaborate together to be successful. The difficult part, of course, then is convincing those communities to give up some autonomy in terms of being able to move that agenda forward. So I appreciate the value of your work and recognize just how difficult it is. My questions were, I wondered if you could summarize, what were the 3 major accomplishments for 2013?
Do you want to start, Greg?
2023? That's a great question. What was interesting about
2023, sorry.
Yes. In 2013, I've got a few others, but that's I would, if you look at the Gantt chart, there it is. We're blasting past it, and 2023 was a year of planning, and we're now hitting a tipping point where we're moving into a time of doing. And what's been interesting about that so it's allowed us to build, I think, stronger relationships at the board. I think we, over the last couple of years, have had quite good relationships at the board. But now it's rubber meets the road time, where I think to your first comment, we need to now make some decisions. We are doing A, not B. And that is at some point, it becomes a zero-sum game. And so the question is how we go about doing that in a way that's open and fair. I think the fact that we've had, and again, you'll have seen the earlier reference to those regional evaluation framework applications, 3 of them being withdrawn. That's not a bad thing. It's actually saying, well, we think this is we think this is what we'd like to do. And we go through a process and say, well, that actually doesn't fit the growth plan. And so instead of that coming to the board and being a big fight, there's a collaborative process that goes, okay, well, maybe let's pull that back and let's see if we can reframe this and come up with a way that it does meet the growth plan and aligns with the growth plan. And I think if you reflect on the creation of the growth plan, some of that being before my time, the final passage of it was in my role as chair, certainly some differences of perspective, fairly vocal. And that's, Mayor's laughing. But that's a bit different now. And whereas it's more of a collaborative stance, I think, generally, not maybe universally, but generally, I think that's probably the single biggest accomplishment this year, is that tipping point of a relationship that's a art of the possible, even if we don't necessarily agree on everything. So that's my answer. I mean, Jordan probably has some things you may want to weigh in on.
Yeah, I think for me, the strengthening of relationships with Indigenous nations in the region, through the co-create of the Addition Reserve framework. We even we had a meeting with municipal administrations, and they asked, we're trying to reach out to Nation X. Do you folks know anyone over there? And it was great to be able to say, yeah, we do. And we're happy to put you in touch with them and be able to, that was the entire intent of this, was to be able to start that relationship and then be able to leverage that relationship for our members to strengthen their relationships with the Indigenous nations. So that would be the only one that I would add to what Greg shared.
Okay, great. And then my last question, and that's a good segue into it, is, so I believe one of the strengths of CMRB is obviously partnership and collaboration. With the issues of environmental sensitivity, water, and regional transportation, are you working with provincial government so there isn't duplication in those areas?
All the time. So we, work with environment protected areas, are often at our meetings on the RTTMP. We have a representative from Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridor sits on the committee. So we're constantly in contact and dialogue with mostly those 2 departments, as well as obviously municipal affairs, to make sure that it's not only, I would say, what the board is collaborating on, but also the art of the possible, to understand and kind of set that table so that we don't come up with this idea that then gets stonewalled. Or is there a different way to frame it so that we can make sure that we have buy-in with the province? We also work extensively with the federal government, looking at that large federal transit funding that is going to be coming down the pipe, the Permanent Transit Fund. We've been in dialogue with them for about 8 months, making sure that the region itself will be able to have its kind of hand up for that grant money.
Great. Yeah, I thought it was a flash of the blinding obvious, but I wanted to raise the question anyways. And again, just to thank you for what I think is critical and difficult work on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Good. Councillor Vadeko.
Thanks for the information. Councillor Reid mentioned environmental concerns. I know you mentioned drought. Is there any talk about wildfire and collaborating on that end when it comes to dry weather? And I know that the Bow River Basin Council's having a meeting out here in Cochrane. Are members of the CMRB attending that to provide input?
Let me double check with my staff in terms of the BRBC, so I'll get back to you. We are often at BRBC meetings. I just don't know if Jamie's able to make that one. She's our rep with BRBC. In terms of collaborating on fire, wildfire, those types of things, it is something that has come up at the board in terms of reciprocal agreements, those kinds of things, or do we want to look at from a service provision, policing, fire, those types of things, do we want to look at broadening that out? Picking up on my comment of the art of the possible, when we first started to have those that dialogue, I would say the relationships around the board table were not as strong as they currently are. And members weren't necessarily interested in overcoming the barriers to what if municipality A has a response time of this and municipality B has a response time of that? How do you overcome that? How do you overcome the fact that one fire department is structured this way, one fire department is structured that way? And so in the dialogue with the board at that time was, let's just leave it to reciprocal agreements, as that seems to solve it. As we get more into extreme weather events, we may see a differing appetite. But the one part that Greg usually mentions, but didn't this time, is the CMRB staff is 5. So what you see here on the slide right now, we are really at capacity. And so the dialogue with the board is going to be, if you want to put something else onto the plate, we are happy to do that. What do you want us to take off? Or do you want to give additional resources? Because this really reflects all the work that 5 people can do.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess I'd be more interested in what happens with our Indigenous neighbors, because I know that talk has been happening just within those communities. So I'd be curious to see what we're doing on that end to work with our partners that are bordering our nation. So, okay. or bordering their nation, I should say.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, Mayor Janon.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. You actually pointed out one of the things that I was just about to point out, and that is all of these projects and all these initiatives are being handled by, I had 4 plus chair, so 5, right?
He counts 2.
So 5 staff, and you bring up a great point about, and we were on the cusp of needing to requisition or potentially requisition additional funding from member municipalities this year, which shift in workload didn't have to do that. But I mean, the $1 million that the province is funding CMRB currently, we're going to be at a point probably in the near future where we start to get into the action items where the rubber hits the road, Greg, as you said, where we're going to want to bite off more and accomplish more and collaborate more, but it's going to cost more money. So I just wanted to maybe socialize that a little bit with council, but also put it out there. It's not really a question, I guess, to each of you, but highlight that is a potential in the future as that workload or Gantt chart starts to increase, as we all start to see initiatives and gain traction and things. It's gonna come with a cost. So we're gonna have some more decisions to make.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, really no questions, having sat there since the beginning, but just really wanted to highlight the work of both of you and thank you both for, and I think Councillor Reid actually highlighted and outlined the work very well that CMRB does, but both of you are strong advocates and strong, Greg, in your chairmanship and Jordan in your leadership of the organization through some pretty strong and difficult conversations. And the board's one thing, but having leadership in place to help steward us through that is another. So appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And we just, you know, I'd reciprocate that and send that back. I mean, I think Cochrane's always been a very strong supporter of CMRB, and I think your comments and questions here tonight really reflect that. So thank you.
Okay, one more question from Councillor McFadden.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, it's great to see you again, and Happy New Year. It's always great to have CMRB here and to get the update of the work that's happening. The big win, of course, of the CMRB is the collaboration where the municipalities come together. And just as a win for Cochrane and the fact that we've been able to, through that collaboration and working with our partners, we've got the two regional transportation projects kind of in the works is a huge win for our residents, and the other two that are on the list. So just kind of to highlight for my residents what the value, the immediate value of the CMRB and the wins has been. And then when I think of the CMRB and before that, the CRP, so we are getting old, is just that collaboration. But then when you were kind of highlighting some of your language today, it's that efficient land use, that conservation of land use. And the one that I wrote down, though, is that saving of taxpayers through efficient service delivery, right? And that's, at the end of the day, what everybody's residents want is we're willing to invest our taxpayer dollars. We just want it to be done as efficiently as possible. And if you guys could all work together to make sure that it works better, like nobody at the end of the day really cares who's paying for the roads. They just want to be able to drive from the airport through Calgary to Cochrane as efficiently as possible. And we all know the water comes from the Bow River, but how do we treat it? Taxpayers don't care. They just want the end result of clean, safe, affordable drinking water. And so it's these being able to work together in this collaboration, which your organization helps to do, that really proves out the value. So I just did want to highlight that. I did have a question. I think the emerging concern of the upcoming year, of course, has been the identification by the province of the expected drought, and you've identified that that's on your Thursday agenda, that drought discussion. The province has called it municipalities to, take this seriously, start to get ready for this. So it's an emerging concern, and one I think I certainly need to get more informed on. That report, that presentation that's happening on Thursday, how can member municipalities see that information or feed into that without being able to attend?
The agenda package is up right now on the CMRB website. Okay. So you can see the full agenda package. It is a hefty agenda package, although as elected councillors, you're probably used to seeing significant amounts of information. And then it's also live streamed, and of course you're also welcome to attend. It's virtual. The committee meetings are virtual. Okay,
and we could find, if I go log on your website, I can find that virtual link?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And do you know what, I apologize. Do you know what time that meeting is going to occur if I wanted to block
9
out some space?
9 o'clock Thursday morning, yep.
I'm in the middle of work at that point, so.
They are recorded and posted after the meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And you can talk to Mayor Janung to get a verbatim replay back as well.
Right, we do have our 2-minute mayor and council reports, and we'll see if you can do it then.
Yeah, but no, it is a big meeting, and I think we're quite fortunate in this region to have a lot of expertise in the water topic. I mean, I'm sure you know Okotoks has been a water-constrained municipality for many years, so they're a real leader in this area, and they bring a lot to the table, and I think each of your administrations also have a tremendous amount of expertise, which we've been relying on. So it's both the electeds and administration working together on this topic. So that convening function of CMRB is pretty important when we're dealing with a potential crisis like the drought that's coming. So.
Okay, Councillor McFadden, you're finished?
I was just going to clarify, but then I can't find it. The website, though, is it CMRB?
CalgaryMetroRegion.ca.
Region.ca.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, it looks like we've exhausted all the questions. So on behalf of all of us, I just want to thank you for your yearly update, Mr. Copping and Mr. Clark. And I'm looking forward to hearing your projects, more about them as they unfold. Thank you.
Thank you again. Always nice to be in Cochrane. Thank you.
Okay, so we move on to our next delegation. Compass Health Services, calling Ms. Karen Parker up to the podium. Welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to extend my thanks to Mayor Inung for inviting me to today's presentation, and thank you for being, for my colleagues prior to coming up here who emphasized the water is certainly a critical resource and in short supply, and I would provide an opportunity to also lead in to saying that primary care certainly is also a critical resource and in short supply, and I intend to provide some information to maybe change this and emphasize an added value to Cochrane in the near future. So I'm Karen Parker. I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm the co-founder of Compass Health Services. I'm the past vice president and also independent director of practice for the Nurse Practitioner Association. Central to the work that's been done that's led us up to today's presentation and the work that we're doing to enhance primary care for Albertans is a focus about this being grounded in and about Albertans, for Albertans, and by Albertans context. Nurse practitioners, to provide an overview, it's about 9,000 nurse practitioners in Canada. They're the fastest growing healthcare profession in Canada. And of those 9,000, we have about 900 in Alberta, so about 10% of the total amount. Most of nurse practitioners are residents in Ontario, and certainly there's opportunities for nurse practitioner-led primary care, more so in Ontario, and there has been for about 18 years. From an experience point of view and educational background, the majority of us have at least 15 years of clinical experience, typically working in an acute care center, either in a critical care environment like an ICU environment, or in an emergency setting. Most of us have at least 2 graduate degrees, and that accumulates about 8 to 10 years of post-secondary experience, and the majority of us in Alberta have over 5 years of nurse practitioner practice. Our work setting typically is about 70 to 80% of us have worked in an acute care setting, and that's just simply because of the funding or the lack of funding in the primary care setting. Once we graduate from our nurse practitioner programming and do the educational components, we are licensed actually and credentialed primary care specialists. It's just that there has been a lack of funding to support us to do the things that we are trained to do. 90% of us live, work, or in or near an urban setting. And from a demographics, majority of us are women, 93%, with an average age of about 48, and that's pretty consistent with our family physician colleagues from the age part, not the gender part. As of November 22nd of 2023, our government has announced that they're supporting our funding requests to have independent nurse practitioner-run clinics. And what that means is we can now operate clinics to support what we've been trained to do, offering our primary care services to Albertans in a public context. Without this, the only way to access a nurse practitioner typically is through either a private practice model or through a primary care support program, which has really not improved access to care to date. Our company was developed last year. The point of this was to provide another opportunity for Albertans to access our services. My colleague and I had developed this. Both of us have over 30 years of training to support the practice, and our emphasis is to provide a relational, high quality, accessible, customized, patient-centric primary care services. We have offered a variety of opportunities to engage the public with this. We do extensive chronic disease management, comprehensive primary care, and we do collaborative healthcare as well with specialty care consultations. We have 2 partners that we've been working with in the past 6 months, both to optimize access and offering of services in a higher level of quality than was available prior to. And we intend to support and continue the offering of these services in addition through offering of modeling that public access opportunities to nurse practitioner-run clinics. Our intention is to provide Cochrane with the first flagship clinic. We have had stakeholder engagement throughout. I've been working with this model, or to support this model to be operationalized through the government for the last 4 years. And we have certainly had significant support from Minister Guthrie, and which is extremely helpful in helping to realize this initiative. As a mid-sized city, it's the fastest growing mid-sized city. It's been the highest growth city for the last 3 or 4 years, which helps to identify this as the seeding of our flagship program. Also, because it's a mid-sized city, it's not necessarily urban, not rural, so it helps to bridge the gap between our urban and rural counterparts. The healthcare needs in Cochrane, typically you're looking at about a 25 to 30% number of individuals who across Alberta lack a primary care provider. In Cochrane, having talked to some stakeholders within the physician group, they estimate it's more like half of the Cochrane residents are without a primary care provider. And then when you're looking at the overall service catchment of about 60,000 individuals, you could have up to 30,000 individuals just within this catchment area that lack primary care services. Cochrane is close to Calgary, recognizing that most of the nurse practitioners that are available work in urban setting. So that adds to the value of housing the first clinic here for accessibility to the providers. There's proximity to services, so we know that there's the urgent care center, there's closeness to the urban centers in Calgary. We can offset the unnecessary use of services by offering extensive after-hours access to primary care providers through this clinic. We have committed to Albertans to provide timely access to high-quality services. I've had discussions with Minister Guthrie, Premier Smith, and Health Minister LaGrange, and have indicated that Cochrane would be the area that I would be interested in providing that flagship program to. And I also live in the Rocky View area, so that makes it easy from an access point. So our mission overall is to provide Albertans with timely access to exemplary primary care services. We intend to do that by having a flagship clinic in Cochrane and then extending this into an integrative model, which I'll describe in a minute. Our core values, which is consistent with nurse practitioner practice, it's engaged to patient, family, and community centeredness, fostering a positive healthcare experiences, cultivating a model of collaborative healthcare delivery, and innovating higher quality, sustainable primary care system. So where are we at? We've started this, I left the Nurse Practitioner Association at the onset of the offering of, or the announcement on November 22nd that they will be honoring public access to nurse practitioners. Since then, I've been engaged in community discussions with stakeholders. We have selected the location, which is also informed by these stakeholders. It's in the historic downtown area, close to in the quarry location. The clinic model is such that we would have 10 nurse practitioners, 10 nurse practitioners providing access to about 1,000 patients each. That would be about a 10,000 population that would gain access to a provider that currently does not have one. We're looking at shifts, so mornings and nights, so we don't need as much space. We're trying to be as sustainable with the economic component of running a clinic. And we would offer after hours, extended hours of servicing, and holidays and weekends as well. We have a website that is being updated to expand to the public access component to this. And there will be a registry that starts as soon as we have access to the build-outs to start our renovations. We have our lease to sign. We've negotiated that for the last month. We have it organized right now. It's contingent, however, upon having the funding model at least described by the government. So that will likely delay our start. Once we have access to the building, we can start registering patients. That's when we would start employing individuals to help to support the administration of our clinic. Best case scenario would probably be late April for the Cochrane Clinic to be open. And our intention is to provide additional supports through the opening of a Calgary clinic and then an Airdrie clinic within a 12-month period of time from the onset. And that integrates our clinics and allows for better use of resources and so it minimizes our expenses by also improving access to the services. We would, again, we're engaged in stakeholder and community engagement. We would love additional support. Ideally, I'd like to have any opportunities to improve the likelihood of having this flagship clinic. There's really not been a lot more information coming from the government since we started this process. But again, community supports to help us once this announcement is made, it would be helpful. The educational component, we're meeting with Innovate Cochrane on Wednesday to support additional information about what we're offering. Lobbying efforts and funding opportunities, we're looking at anything that can support not only our clinic, but allow other nurse practitioners across Alberta to have the opportunity to open their clinics and to engage in the connections with stakeholders as an ongoing part of this process. That's it.
Okay. This is great news for Cochrane, much needed, and I can see we've got some questions for you. We'll start with Mayor Janung.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you for taking me up on the invitation to come this evening to share your story. This is an exciting transition. You've outlined well the changes in the legislation and the funding. But I just, and during our meeting with administration, I think I really want to highlight the work from our planning department and our CAO when we really sat down with you, and I understand you really got to work, and that's out where the location and direction and all of that, so I appreciate the work of our administration with that. But not being in the healthcare industry or even in our jurisdiction, I like how you've highlighted what we can do as a municipality to help, and this, you've brought something to our doorstep that can help a problem and that we have across the province. So appreciate your efforts. I love that you were able to come and tell your story tonight, and it's the beginning of I think just a great thing that's going to happen in our community. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Federico.
Thank you for the information. As a person who is part of the primary care network, I appreciate you coming forward. I know that as a parent of 3 children, a lot of times it's difficult when kids get sick out here that we really have nowhere to go except to take our children or ourselves to urgent care, which is often backed up and putting pressure on the people that work in that end. I was just curious, have you had any discussions with the Cochrane Health Foundation out here? I mean, they're one of our big stakeholders who's really trying to drive change. I was just wondering if you had a conversation with them.
Yeah, I met with Dr. Funditis on 2 occasions so far. He actually came to my private clinic to look around and asking questions. He had more questions about the funding model than I had at this point. I am going on on the impression that this is not something that's going to be removed, but it's going to be just a matter of time before it's announced. I did ask him about funding opportunities in the event that that was something that the Health Foundation would support. And it doesn't look like it aligns with what they're interested in doing. I think they were focusing more on the urgent care center and Alberta Health Services supports right now, and that's fine. And again, I also asked him for opportunities to connect with his colleagues, recognizing that it would be really valuable to work with and in concert. Although they wouldn't be specifically in the clinic, we can both rely on each other for different services as needed. And so we'll certainly help to cultivate relationships with our family physician colleagues who are in Cochrane. This is about your clinic. It's not my clinic. It's you accessing high-level, high-quality services that are customized to when you need it and where you need it.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous, and I certainly applaud that both of you have your own kind of mission of improving healthcare. I think that's really overall the whole community's idea is to provide additional services. Would you be servicing like a walk-in kind of idea? Is that kind of a primary focus?
Yeah. So I worked on the model. Actually, there were 3 iterations of the proposal. So in each setting of the initial proposal, it was to include opportunities for full, for the same type or the same level of paneling. So it's basically how many patients you're taking and the complexity of the care. So it would be no different between a family physician and a nurse practitioner. And it takes a while to get up to a full panel. So walk-ins are part of the process to make sure that you're working full-time. It's a salary-based model that we asked for. So you're working full-time to make sure that there's high-quality, accessible care, full-time per nurse practitioner that's engaged in that clinic.
Well, thank you. I don't have any other questions at this time. I look forward to see what you come forward with. I think it's a much-needed necessity for a growing community, and any sort of thing that we can do as council to help you push forward to provide additional healthcare services to our community is important and appreciated. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor.
Okay, Councillor Reid.
Yeah, Karen, thank you for your presentation. I'm just trying to get my head around it. So this would be a new commercial opportunity, business opportunity in our community because of the changes in Alberta health legislation. Is that kind of the gist of it?
It's opening it up to the full complement of existing primary care providers. So right now, only family physicians have access to funding for their services. Nurse practitioners haven't, and they haven't for decades. So we've been around for about 50 years as a profession, and we've always had a difficult time, a mechanism. There's lacked a mechanism for us to be properly reimbursed. So appreciating that the services that I provide are the same as my family physician colleagues, and that there's a huge disparity in access for primary care across Alberta, specifically in more highly growth areas such as Cochrane. It makes sense to have the opportunities afforded to open up nurse practitioners as a provider of care the same way that a family physician would provide that care.
So again, it's a new business commercial opportunity providing health services that came about because of changes in the legislation.
Sure, it's an extension of practice and reimbursement to another individual who also provides that same service as the physicians do.
Okay, and if I could, two more questions. One, what is it specifically? Like, I'm trying to appreciate what a nursing practitioner clinic would do versus a doctor's office.
It's very similar. The one difference that a nurse practitioner, if you would, it's the relational component to it. So it's not a fee-for-service based model of practice. It's more of a salary base. So you have 4 or 5 concerns that you want to discuss with your provider. You would have the opportunity under this model to book the allotted time to ensure that you are able to look after all of those pieces. So we usually go in 30 to 60 minute increments per patient to make sure that they're able to access the services that they need to meet the healthcare needs. So in comparison to my family physician colleagues, and predominantly those who work in a fee-for-service model that may have 1 or 2 complaints that you can provide. In a nurse practitioner-based model, it's more of a relational model where you are actually the expert of your body. You provide me with information about what your healthcare concerns are or needs, and we work together collaboratively to make sure that those are addressed in a timely amount without having to be tied to my clinic to come back every other day to make sure the rest of those healthcare needs were assessed. There's no difference in what I can do compared to my physician colleagues. It's just we do it a bit differently.
So, again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to belabor the point, but the doctor that I see in the city is getting a block funded, his clinic is getting a block funding from the provincial government to provide services to a certain number of clients. And so I don't pay anything, but it's a business model. So it's a doctor's office, collaboration of doctors getting a block funding contract from the government for a certain number of families. And they are doing that. Can a clinic provide prescriptions? Can it provide referrals to specialists? Can it do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's no difference between what you're experiencing and what I would be providing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very similar. So if they're looking at a salary-based model in a primary care network kind of a facility, like the Crowfoot Clinic, something like
exactly.
that.
That's what I belong to.
Yeah, so it's very similar. So it would be a salary-based amount per nurse practitioner for carrying a full panel of patients, full workload, and working full-time to support that. Yeah.
And the last question I have is, by flagship clinic in Cochrane, you mean that it'll be the first of your 3 clinics? Is that what you mean by flagship?
Yeah, so it would be the first for Compass. I would like it, since I've worked on this from the very beginning, and I have the most information on how to support this in a high-level operationalizing of this clinic, and to integrate it and make sure that it is high standards, flagship, not only for my company but for Alberta as well. There's nuances around there that I'm not in control of. For example, I don't know when the funding is going to be released. I'm tied to making sure that the funding is supporting what the costs of the clinic build are. There's certain operational costs that will be similar to my family physician colleagues. So I have to make sure that the operational costs are also remunerated by the government the same as my family physician colleagues.
Thank you.
Good. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I really appreciate that you're trying to find an innovative way to leverage a career worth of skill sets to fill the gap that we have in providing medical services and care to residents. So, and I've had to do some quick learnings tonight because I have to admit I was not actually overly familiar with what a nurse practitioner, was. And I know you kind of answered to Councillor Reid there, but could you do just give us a quick synopsis of what's the difference between a nurse practitioner, and a doctor in the service levels? That's my first question. Sure. Actually, let's go with that one, and then I'll give my other 2 after that.
Yep, a really good question. So a family physician would start with a bachelor's, and then they would go through medical training, and then they'd go through their clinical training and support independent practice as a family physician at the end of that. Nurse practitioners have a very broad breadth of clinical training as in a clinical context in the nursing side, as they usually it's at least 15 years in Alberta anyway, Western Canada actually. So long amount of clinical training, then you do your graduate program on top of it, and that's a blending of the nursing science and the medical science, really to help to establish a framework so you can act and provide the same level of care as a family physician. So just a different way of getting to the same level. That's the answer. So I would call that, so that's the terminal degree, or the terminal part of a career for a someone who started as a registered nurse and then worked up and did multiple graduate degrees, more experienced as an advanced clinician, and then did their nurse practitioner at the end. So that's where primary care specialist actually is a very good term to use. It takes the nurse out of the whole context that's confusing, whereas a family physician refers themselves as a generalist, and then they specialize on top of that.
So for my family, I show up, I go see my family doctor, and he helps me and the kids deal with kind of our day-to-day ailments, those type of things. So I would come and see your primary care specialist team, and the service result for me would be the same.
Okay, so this is where my bias is going to come in.
It'd be better, but I know you're saying it's better because there's a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the whole gamut of comprehensive care. So if you're already aligned with a family physician that's working in a salary model, that changes their practice, and probably you'll have more access to primary prevention, health literacy, which is helping you to make good decisions based on the information you're Googling, for example. Vaccines would be one piece of information. What are the nuances with vaccine therapy, and what are the likelihood of side effects for you in your background? Primary prevention, making sure that you're up to date with screening protocols, catching diseases early if they're present, and then moving along the trajectory to managing diseases, making sure that if you have something that is not sort of a garden variety illness, that it's well investigated, and referring to specialists. So there's no difference in access to services between a primary care specialist and a family physician. It just usually is operationalized different depending on their funding model. If they're fee-for-service, you're going to get short, quick visits. If you have a comprehensive approach, it's likely because your family physician is salaried. And it's only about 15% of Albertan family physicians operate in a salary-based model.
I'm fairly certain my doctors are fee-for-service, because I just have to go and talk fast with my list of things.
Yeah.
But, okay, so as a patient, though, I can get my day-to-day yearly checkups done with either you or a doctor, which is great. You've talked about the funding models, but that's more on the business side. If I'm walking in and needing your services, my kid's got strep throat, AHS covers your services?
Alberta Health, yeah. So the way that the proposals have gone through, it's a funding that's like it's an alternative relationship plan, where the family physicians would have access to. So it would be a contracted funding model on a salary, and just identifying that you'll be working full time, you'll be accountable for your practice, you'll be transparent with your with the billing, or with your with the notes that you're providing, and that you're also engaged in quality improvement initiatives. So those are part of what an alternative relationship plan, like Councillor Reid, his family physician, is organized around. It's very similar to those. It adds value not only on a patient-to-patient basis, but it adds value on a panel-to-panel basis, because you have additional requirements to make sure that you're doing a good job.
No, and I understand that. I just from somebody who wants to use the service, though, I'm not paying up front for this service?
No, not if if the nurse practitioner is tied to a public funding model.
And is that the expectation? Yeah, and I know you're waiting for the announcements, and that's probably tied to the provincial budget cycle, the end of March. But is it your expectation that your services would be covered for the average individual by the provincial government medical?
Yeah, it would be no
plan,
different than accessing. I wouldn't be one of the nurse practitioners in the clinic.
Your team would be?
It would be my team, yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. Oh, my last one, sorry. You had identified what your catchment area, you talked about a catchment area, but can you describe that for me? What is the catchment area? Is it, Cochrane to Bragg Creek to?
You mean the service industry?
Yeah.
I was just looking at how many people access services within the Cochrane area. So, if you're looking at how many people who don't have a primary care provider, it'd be on a first come, first served basis. And we would prefer if the patient was, they call it unattached, so didn't have a primary care provider. it's just good practice to make sure that we're all playing nice in the sandbox.
No poaching of clients. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And yeah, best of luck with this model. I mean, I think we need to be innovative in making sure that everyone has, fair and safe and affordable access to health.
Okay. Looks like we've answered all the questions. I just have a couple. You mentioned Ontario had this for a long time and we're just bringing it to Alberta. Is it just a new funding model that they've had for quite some time?
So actually, the funding model that we've proposed and have been adopted in Alberta is an historic model. It's actually not, it's a different type of funding model that's available across Canada. And actually, it's not even available on a global market right now. So Alberta would be the first province or the first location that would offer independent or direct reimbursement to the nurse practitioners and allow them to also own and operate their own clinics. The ones in Ontario are government operated. So they would have a facility, the nurse practitioner would lead and run the clinic, but they wouldn't own the clinic. And the difference between owning it and not owning it are innovation, quite frankly. So because of the work done in a private clinic, I can innovate my clinic and my clinics in an integrative model much better than if I was just walking into sort of an AHS facility or a primary care network that's already been organized around that. So it just allows more efficiency, a bit more financial stewardship and innovation for the outcome of improved health for patients.
Good. So if I came into the clinic, would I be assigned to one nurse practitioner and always see that same person if they're available?
Yeah, really good question. So what we've learned through, again, it's nice to have choice. So on our website, you'll have nurse practitioners that you can review their bio, you can interview them, and then identify which one you think that you would align with best and work with that individual. And if that individual is not there on a day that you need to get services, then you would be able to be supported by another nurse practitioner.
It's a good model with not telling your story over and over every time.
Yeah.
Great. I think that was about all I had. I do like the component of after hours. We sure need that in Cochrane too. So will you have a relationship with Alberta Healthcare and work together, or is it totally separate?
So Alberta Health is the funding organization. Alberta Health Services is more of the acute care side. But certainly we want to nurture collaborative, beneficial partnerships with our family physician colleagues. They would benefit from us, we would benefit from them. Ideally, it's all about the patient and Albertans. So if we work together nice, it adds value to Albertans as a whole, and we can learn well from each other, I think, so.
Excellent. I feel the same about the town of Cochrane. It's not our business to do healthcare, but working with you and helping make it happen is important that we work together. So thank you on behalf of all of us for your presentation today, and I wish you all the best with the future. We look forward to hearing more.
Thanks.
Thank you. Should we take a little short break? Yes? Okay, 10 minutes, so it'd be 7:22. Okay, we'll get started again. Thank you. Ms. Gail Butts is here to do a presentation about our 2024 assessment overview. Take it away.
Thanks. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Flowers, Mayor Jung, and council members. I'm here tonight to present the 2024 assessment overview. I'd first like to start by thanking council for the investment and support for staffing resources over the past few years. Assessors have been, extremely difficult to recruit. However, we were able to hire 2 assessors the past year, and these resources have significantly assisted with the growth pressures that we're all experiencing. So I appreciate it and are thankful for that. I'd like to thank our assessment team who worked diligently to produce the assessment roll once again for 2024, and tax staff who always prepare the notices and make sure they go out on time. So thanks to both those. So to start, our valuation date is July 1st, 2023, and that's based on the market conditions as of July 1st of the assessment year. Condition date is December 31st, so it reflects the physical condition of the property as of December 31st of the assessment year. Assessment splits, so from 23 to 24, you'll notice our assessment split has, the residential has went up slightly, more residential growth in comparison to non-residential growth. This split is excluding the CLR, Community Revitalization Levy. The next slide will show us if we include it, it's the same 89.74 compared to 88.65 last year, so that residential just changing it a bit more from last year. So assessment shifts. So this year residential average assessment is up 9.68%. So that takes our assessed value to $615.5. Townhomes duplex average assessment went up 12%, so $460,400. And condominiums went up 14% with the average assessment now at $330,800. Some good news on our growth. Growth was predicted to be 3.87%. Actual growth came in at 4.2%. So just for context, the growth, predicted growth that we do every year is in collaboration with building and planning, and we try and predict what's going to happen for the end of the year. This year, due mainly to the favorable weather conditions and the market demand for some of these projects and houses were finished earlier than anticipated. So that brought our growth number up to 4.2%. Non-residential shifts, both commercial and industrial, fairly similar at 2 and 2.4%. So the website, we have a new website, and kudos to Communications for all their work. It looks amazing. Assessment has worked in conjunction with Communications to update our website page, brochure, and the brochures all, and have added numerous resources to help with the assessment processes. Residents can review and compare your assessment notices. You can access your assessment. We have a property viewer map. A list of frequently asked questions is available, and we'd encourage residents to check those out. I also included those frequently asked questions in council's package tonight. Lots of great information on the website. There's a 1-minute video, how does assessment impact your property taxes, and if you take a view of that, it explains it really well and will help to understand the process. Just a reminder that changes to your assessed value are impacted as well if you added a garage, finished basement, development, renovations, and they were finished by the end of the year, December 31st condition date. They will be reflected in your assessment change. So some people might notice a higher change, and that may be due to some of those things that you finished during the year. So an increase in your assessed value does not mean that your taxes are increasing at the same rate. And again, I said that video will explain that fairly well when you watch that. The 2024 requisitions from the province, along with the budget-approved revenue requirement, will impact those tax changes this year, and the rates will be finalized in May once all the requisitions are received. Let me see. So the assessment page, like I say, has reviewing your assessment, accessing the important dates. There's assessment forms and documents where you can go down, and we have a property search map. We have a assessment search page where you can look at your assessment and compare it with your neighboring properties as well. So just a distribution of each tax dollar the town receives. So just kind of wanted to show you a little slide on this to say that out of each dollar that were received, municipal services are 67 cents. Rocky View Foundation is $0.01, and 32 cents of that dollar goes to the province for the education portion. So you can you can contact us at email@assessment@cochrane.ca. You can give us a call. Our review period is January 18th to March 26th. Final complaint date is March 26, 2024. Notices are mailed January 18th, so this week they'll be mailed. I also wanted to remind residents that you can join our tax monthly installment payment plan and pay your taxes monthly instead of one lump sum in June. You can email the tax department to discuss the further details of that, or go to our website and the links provided there. Tax rebates are provided to the town for seniors who qualify under the Cochrane Seniors Property Tax Support Program, or the provincial government provides a senior property tax deferral program, and the links and information and these supports can also be found on the website. The assessment department is here to assist with any inquiries, questions. I know sometimes when people see the change in assessment, they're a little concerned about the taxes, but we can walk them through that. And like I say, the website, you know, because of extra resources and a lot of hard work, we were able to really ramp up the website, and it's a good place to start if you have any questions. And that concludes it. So any questions from council?
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Anybody with any questions? Oh, Councillor Federico.
Thank you for the information. Being that growth was predicted at 3.87, but actually came at 4.2, that additional growth, kind of what does it go towards? Because I'm sure that we're going to be asked that question.
Okay, through the Councillor Flowers to Councillor Federico. So the increase in growth with that extra, I guess, growth revenue, it spreads the tax burden. We have more money to spread the tax burden out, so it will definitely have some impact in, you know, when the tax rates are set, but also saying that that depends on the requisitions that come from the government as well too, and those that come in. But definitely from what we predicted to what came in will definitely help for sure.
That's good news probably for some out there. The other, I wouldn't say concern, but something I definitely noticed is that the residential to non-residential tax comparison is actually leaning more towards the resident rather than to the non-resident. I know that we've had this conversation many times around this table about trying to balance that out more, and instead we're growing in the opposite way than I think predominantly most of council wants to see it go. So is there any ideas of discussions taking place either with council in this particular term about what we can do to look at some options?
Is that a question for Mr. Hyman?
Councillor Federico, or through the chair to Councillor Federico, I think the envision Cochrane is one way when we're looking at future land uses and the growth of our community. If we're going to make those efforts to redistribute that growth, like we just simply we're growing so fast, the percentage of residential growth is increasing much more rapidly than non-residential. So we have to look for different areas where we can grow, and I think council's been having some of those discussions, and there'll be more through the planning process that we're doing now.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think it needs to be a discussion sooner than later, because obviously when we compare ourselves to like municipalities, I mean, you know, it's difficult to compare to, say, some community like Leduc, who has such a high diverse of an industrial, you know, commercial tax base that is carrying it, rather than all landing on the residential tax base, which is becoming a little bit concerning. And only one more question, because I know I've been asked before. I know that we do like block values when it comes to, you know, doing assessment values. Can you kind of explain to the general public, like, what is a block value, and how do you kind of come up with that idea of comparing like properties to like properties?
So, sorry, when you're saying like a block value, like average assessments? Is
Yeah,
that kind
like, I mean, because obviously people will say, well, you know, my neighbor's house sold for XYZ, if I put my house up, it wouldn't. It's a question that we often get, and people are often frustrated when the value is not the same, so I'm just giving you an opportunity to address that publicly.
Right, yeah, and like I said, the video really explains that really well, but basically, you know, one person, it may be the exact same house, one person, say, paid 5 for it, and one's paid 4 for it. So what we're trying to do is level out, and maybe the middle person, you know, has been in their house, so there is no change. So what the assessment does is it levels it out, so it brings it so like everybody's assessed at an equal, basically if all things are pretty much equal, at an equal base, so the tax burden then is spread evenly to each person, instead of, you know, you paid 500 for yours, so you're gonna pay more, this guy's gonna pay less. Well, we're gonna distribute it so everybody's pretty much equal if you know, your house is pretty much equal.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm excited to hear, and I don't know if there's anything new, but you did mention the new website. Is there new material on the website for people to see, other than what we've seen kind of in the past on our old website?
Yeah, I think when you go and have a view of it too, I think prior to this, we had a lot of written dialogue and stuff like that, which, you know, when you go to the website and look at that, nobody wants to read all that stuff. So we've put a lot of visual graphics and stuff like that. We've put lots of links to information. Takes us back to the tax page if you have tax questions and stuff like that. So yeah, we're really proud of the work that was done on it, and I think, like, in collaborations with communications, it's really taken us like up to the next level, I think.
Perfect. Kudos to the communications team on that. It will help address many of the challenges that we often hear this time of year. So thank you for that. And I guess only one last thing, you did mention kind of the final date. Do we have more people being able to take questions, concerns? Is it the same small group of people, or we have more people?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, being the additional 2 more assessors, it's, you know, we're all hands on deck. When people phone in, we answer the phones right away, you know, like, unless we're super busy in the first, you know, it goes to voicemail or whatever, we try and get back within 48 hours to residents. You know, we'll call, we'll meet with them if that's what they want. Like, our goal is to educate, you know, everybody, and the more we can do that, the easier our job becomes as well. So thanks.
Great. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, I didn't really have any questions. I think you did a great job on the presentation. I mean, it's obviously great for our municipality that our assessment has, you know, continued to grow. It certainly shows that Cochrane is a desirable place to live, and I did have some colleagues reaching out doing the kind of the comparison, and yeah, we're still better. Okotoks apparently had 20%, and I don't understand how that's possible, so I have to drill down on that one a little bit further. But I did want to congratulate both your team and the communications team on the information on the website. It is, and to see that there's that video is on there, because there's been numerous times where people have asked me to explain, you know, how does the assessment affect this, and it's wrong that you're double dipping, and it's a cumbersome system that, you know, that the province has given us to deal with, and so we have to manage that as best as possible, and it's convoluted. And I know one time I was trying to explain it to a friend, and she's like, what, I'm just not, I said, no, it's not you, it's complicated, and I don't know a simple way to explain it. So it's great to have this video. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I do appreciate the improved graphics and the GIS ability to go on here and to be able to, like, look at your property, those type of things. So I really think one of the things we've really focused on in recent years is improving their education and the communication piece. And I think the team's partnered well to definitely improve it, take the next step. So congratulations to your team and everybody who participated in taking this to the next level. I did have one question. So if I look this up right now, my assessment on here is from last year.
Yeah.
So when will the updated assessment information be available in the system?
Thanks. So yeah, our assessments are mailed out on the 18th, the Thursday. Probably they may be on prior, but like the prior night, later on that night or whatever. But people will be able to view them first thing on the 18th.
Right. So everything that's available on there right now is actually the assessment from 2022.
Yeah, 23.
23. Yes.
We call them 24 now.
I'm gonna stop.
That's another complicated.
I'm gonna stop with that. But okay, that's great. Just to know when the dates are gonna come into play. So, but yeah, I think kudos to the team for just improving the clarity on that of a very kind of complex piece to wrap your head around. And I've heard good things about your team. That while the answer may not be the one that they wanted to get, they were able to access your team and have discussions very quickly and very respectfully. So please pass that on.
Great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I want to begin by saying thank you for your preface in identifying that not only that you needed additional resources, but council was able to address that. You know, I think it's unfortunate we were in a position to be able to do it earlier, but I'm glad that we did do it. And thank you and your team for all your hard work. I too wanted to compliment you on and whoever else on the administration side for the website. So I've had a little chance to play with it and recognize that it's a really valuable tool for those that really want to be able to understand and appreciate just exactly what's going on with their assessment. The one question I had, and I'm not sure that Tara maybe have referenced it and I didn't hear the answer, how does one compare this year's with previous years? Is there a tool on there that one can do that?
I don't believe that once we upload the 2024 assessments, you can see your 2023 assessments on there. But you can definitely go on if you have an e-services account, you can sign up for that and you can see all the years of assessments on there as well. Okay. And so you can go as far back as you can go on the assessments. So you can go online and sign up for an e-services account, give you a password, and you can see all your assessments on there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm technically capable of that, but I will try. But just as a suggestion for improvement, maybe there is a way of being able to do that easily online. But otherwise, great, and thank you and your team.
Great, thank you.
Looks like that's it for questions. So
Perfect.
everyone should go watch that video and try to understand it. We run into this every year. It's so complicated. But thank you for all your work and your presentation.
Great, thank you very much.
So that completes our business portion of the meeting. So could I get a motion to go in camera for one item? Councillor Reid, motion to go into camera. All in favor? Thank you.